Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you find people are having a great day. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Jonathan Casey, and today we're gonna discuss the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro. I'll be breaking down a few specs, comparing the phones to similar price phones, and finding out if they actually are too expensive, since a lot of people were upset about the pricing of the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro, more so the Pro, but they both received a reasonable amount of hate. First of all, let's talk about OnePlus's history so we can further understand what exactly is going on here. On April 22nd, 2014, OnePlus changed the game and shook up the industry with the OnePlus One, releasing a phone with flagship specs and incredible software features that complemented those specs for a price that was unheard of. A 16GB model, which is kind of funny, came in at $299, and later that year, a 64GB model was released for $349. Though the launch was really rough by using an invite-only system, it ended up working for them. Over a year later, on July 27, 2015, OnePlus announced the OnePlus 2. It stayed on the trend of delivering flagship specs to consumers at an affordable price despite the $30 increase in that price. A 16GB model came in at $330, and 64GB would set you back $390. Unfortunately, this was probably the worst OnePlus device ever released in terms of performance, battery life, and overall bugginess. That said, it had incredible build quality. That same year, on October 29th, OnePlus released the OnePlus X, which was like a limited edition phone. It brought back the price that people really loved, coming in at $249 for the Onyx model. Some regions were given the opportunity to purchase a ceramic model for $399, which had impeccable build quality. The OnePlus 3 was unveiled on June 14th, 2016. Pricing came in at $399 for the 64GB model. If we count the OnePlus 2, it's around a $10 price increase. The experience was to be expected, delivering flagship-like performance. Later that year, on November 15th, 2016, OnePlus announced the OnePlus 3T, which was a minor update to the 3. Pricing jumped up about $40 and started at $439 for the 64GB model and $479 for the 128. Skipping the 4 altogether, OnePlus went straight to the 5 on June 20th, 2017, pricing again going up by $40 and starting at $479 for the 64GB model. The 5T was announced on November 16th, 2017, and it was only a minor refinement to the 5. Pricing also went up slightly by about $20, but the experience was really good. May 16th, 2018, OnePlus announced the 6, or OnePlus 6. Pricing went up again by around $30. The 64GB model came in at $529, and the 128GB model retailed for $579. Later, OnePlus unveiled the 6T on October 29th, 2018. If I'm not mistaken, this was the first year that OnePlus introduced the RAM upgrades instead of storage upgrades. Pricing actually shocked many people by only increasing the lower end model by $20 and keeping the higher end model exactly the same. So for 128GB of storage and 6 gigs of RAM, pricing was $549. And for the same amount of storage, but with 8GB of RAM, it remained $579 compared to the previous iteration. In 2019, on May 14th, OnePlus unveiled the OnePlus 7 and, for the first time, a Pro model to go alongside it. The OnePlus 7 was not released in the US, which is why pricing came in at roughly $640 after the conversion. But if you're from the US like myself, I would completely disregard the 7, and instead let's focus on the 7 Pro. The 7 Pro was equipped with higher end specs and 3 different options in terms of RAM. You had 6GB, 8GB, and 12GB. Priced at $669, $699, and $749. This was the biggest price increase we had seen so far, coming in at $120 more, roughly $120 that is, versus the previous generation. The OnePlus 7T came out September 26, 2019, and unlike the 7, it was a US release. Pricing started at $599, and then 1 month later in October, the 7T Pro was released, but it wasn't available in the US initially until the McLaren edition. Pricing for the 7T Pro came in at around $865, which again was around a $120 price increase from the previous model. Finally, we arrive with the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro. Released April 14th, 2020. Pricing for the 8 starts at $699, which is a $100 increase from the 7T, and the 8 Pro starts at $899, which is technically around a $30 increase. You see, some people have compared the price of the 7T with the 8 Pro, which is not how it should be. Pro models need to be compared with previous Pro models, and then when looking at it from that perspective, it might make a little bit more sense and change things ever so slightly. In any case, how did we go from $299 to $899 in a matter of about 6 years? Well, there's several different reasons, but first let's look at what could have caused the biggest price jump in OnePlus history: the 6T to the 7 Pro, and then the 6T to the 7. The 6T to the 7 Pro was a $120 price jump, and the 6T to the 7 was a $100 price jump. When looking at the specs of the 6T, the 7, and the 7 Pro, obviously there's a processor jump going from the 845 on the 6T to the 855 on the 7 and 7 Pro. You also have more RAM on the 7 and 7 Pro, especially on the 7 Pro, since it can go all the way up to 12 gigabytes. And then you also have a refined design and several other features that just enhance the experience over the 6T. This includes things like the OnePlus 7 Pro's pop-up camera, which obviously must have cost OnePlus quite a bit of money for R&D. And yeah, there's other refinements that I'm not really going over, but you can see the specs on the screen for yourself. Now, the Galaxy S10 and the S10 Plus were also released that year. The Galaxy S10 started at $899 and the S10 Plus started at $999. Versus $640 for the OnePlus 7, $669, $699, and $749 for the 7 Pro. Having used all of these devices, I would take the S10 Plus overall, followed by the OnePlus devices. Samsung also had a little trick up their sleeve with the Galaxy S10e, which was pretty much a Galaxy S10 with a few downgrades. However, the price came in at $749, which was quite good considering. That said, when looking at the OnePlus 7 Pro and its beautiful display, the eye-catching pop-up camera, it's difficult to pick the S10e over the OnePlus 7 Pro. The iPhone XS and XS Max were also released a few months prior to the OnePlus 7. Pricing for the XS started at $999 and the XS Max came in at $1099. These were substantially higher prices than the OnePlus 7 and 7 Pro. All of these devices are great, but whether or not the iPhone XS and XS Max provides an experience that's worth several $100s more comes down to you. Apple also had a special release with the iPhone XR, which brought a lot of the XS features minus the high-resolution OLED display. It did have thicker bezels, and there wasn't a telephoto camera on the backside, so portrait mode was limited to faces only. But with that said, it did come with a larger battery than the XS, as well as a starting price of $749, which was really good. So now let's fast forward to current times. Samsung has the S20 and the S20 Plus, which start at $999 and $1199, versus the OnePlus 8 coming in at $699 and the 8 Pro at $899. Apple, who I feel is OnePlus's biggest competitor when looking at prices alone, has the iPhone 11, 11 Pro, and then the 11 Pro Max. Prices start at $699, $999, and $1099. Now, Apple was praised for the iPhone 11's price, since they delivered an amazing phone with great features at such a good price. But as you can see, the iPhone 11 matches the OnePlus 8's price, which also brings a phenomenal experience with high-end specs, just like the iPhone 11. I could go on and keep comparing, but I think you see my point. While OnePlus has increased the price of their phones over time, the experience has also been improved and increased over time, offering compelling specs and features that match or exceed the competition. While larger companies have attempted to make more cost-conservative models, they're always more crippled versus OnePlus's or even their own higher-end models. I know this doesn't officially answer the question, why has the price increased so much? But at least now we have some clarity on the market, since other manufacturers also have increased their prices over time. One thing I think many people are forgetting is that OnePlus does not manufacture their own components. While they do technically engineer their own software, which is Oxygen OS, it's merely a skin on top of a software that Google controls and creates. Companies like Samsung and Apple create their own processors, minus the fact that some Samsung devices are using Qualcomm radios and chips. However, Samsung even creates their own storage as well as display tech. With this in mind, it's hard not to respect OnePlus when they are delivering phones like the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro for prices that are cheaper than the competition, but yet they have to outsource all of their parts from these manufacturers such as Samsung. The final thing to consider is inflation, and this is a big thing here in the United States since the cost of everything is continuously going up, but yet our US dollar, the value of it is going down. With all of these things being laid out, do I think the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro are overpriced? No. It's definitely not the $299 flagship killer I remember, but no company can survive by pricing their devices that low for this long. The biggest difference is where companies like Apple slowly raised their prices over the course of many years. OnePlus had to raise their prices little bits at a time for each launch in order to keep up with demand and stay relevant in the tech market. This of course means spending more money on higher end parts, R&D in order to bring exclusive and new features to their devices, and ensuring the production stays on cue so their fans can actually receive their phones on time. That said, I do think that OnePlus should be held at a higher standard whenever people are reviewing their phones, and should not be given passes just because they're delivering phones for less money. As prices go up, so should that discrimination. However, I think people really need to consider what we just went over before complaining too much about the price alone. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit different than what I usually do, but I decided to take a different approach for my first video in the OnePlus 8 series. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. Let me know what you want to see in terms of content for the OnePlus 8 and 8 Pro down in the comment section. And yeah, I'll see if I can make sure I get to those videos that are requested. I hope everyone is safe and sound and living the best quarantine life that you can possibly live. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and I will see you fine people in the next one.